So on page 4, I'm looking for a screenshot of the text of the first research paper. The topic of this research paper is right here, safely using headphones and earbuds. The content for the paper is all found in the textbook. As you walk through the instructions in the textbook, it will give you the specific text that should be typed for this paper. And I'm telling you with these various call-out boxes, the kinds of things that I'll be looking over. Your paper will most likely end up being 2 pages as we see it here. If that is the case, then go ahead and just give me a screenshot of the 2 pages like you're seeing it like I've done here with the 2 pages side by side, and then you can screenshot that and put it into page 4 of your assignment. On page 5 of your paper, I need to see a screenshot of the works cited. Again, this will be something you should be inserting from the tool within Word to allow you to insert a bibliography or a reference list. Again, I'm not really looking for a certain number of pages on your paper. I'm looking at the format so that I can verify that you understand clearly how to create a research paper and use the Word tools. So starting on page 6 will be a research paper with a topic that you select. You can find the information for this on page 116. This is the lab for this portion of the assignment. And the example that's used in the text is a wearable devices, but you can, again, pick the topic that you want, develop the paper using the knowledge that you learned in the previous assignment. I've given you some specific things that I might be looking for in the paper here. And if it ends up being more than 1 page, it should be roughly 300 to 350 words, but if it ends up being more than 1 page, you can just, as I said before, put the 2 pages side by side and screenshot that so it's all on page 6. And then on page 7, I'm looking for a works cited page that would have the references that you selected for the topic of your choice on your research paper. During week 1, I introduced you to an optional book called From the Garden to the City that talks about technology's impact on our lives as Christians. And at the start of this week's session, I asked you a question: which items of these 4 items qualify as technology? The answer is all of them. To explain, I'm going to pull some quotes right out of the book. Dyer quotes Doug Adams from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, saying that technology is often viewed by age. Technology before you're born is viewed as normal. Before age 30, incredibly exciting. And after age 30, the end of civilization as we know it. So technology, in many ways, is a tool, and our age often determines how we view it. The important thing about realizing that technology is a tool is that it has the ability to transform us. Technology itself has the ability to transform us. So take an example of a shovel. This is an example that he uses in the book. If you were to go out and use that tool for a week, your body would look much different than it did when you started. You would have calluses. You would have some muscles in places you didn't have before. The tool itself, that form of technology, transforms you. And a key quote he has in his book is that rather than taking our cues about technology from the scriptures and the outline of God's plan for humanity, we seem to always be locked in a cycle of questioning the really, really new, but accepting the just barely old. From that, Dyer gives us this definition, which I really appreciate for technology, that's simply the human activity of using tools to transform God's creation for practical purposes. So as we think of technology as a tool, it really is, in the right light, as a Christian, it's a tool to transform God's creation for practical purposes. The second question I asked you is technology neutral. This is an argument you'll hear quite often, that technology is completely neutral. It really depends on how it's being used or how people use it. And the answer to this is that it's false. Again, pulling from his book, he says that one of the most dangerous things we can believe in this world is that technology is neutral. When technology has distracted us to the point that we no longer examine it, it gains the greatest opportunity to enslave us. So he gives a more modern day example, just like the shovel has the ability to transform. Something like Facebook, and I'm not saying Facebook is bad at all in any way, but it brings with it its own value systems. In that way, let me explain, because it transforms our identity into something that fits into a web page. It prioritizes your job title, educational background, spouse, and hometown. Those are all some of the fields that you fill out when you make a Facebook account, subtly implying that those are the most important aspects of who we are. Similarly, a really good book, another good book that I highly recommend. This one is a secular book, but very good, called The Shallows: What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains. The Internet has the ability to transform our minds. He makes a strong argument using lots of valid research that when we go online, we enter an environment that promotes cursory reading, hurried and distracted thinking, and superficial learning. It's possible to think deeply while surfing the net, just as it's possible to think shallowly while reading a book, but that's not the type of thinking that the technology encourages and rewards. Our use of the internet involves many paradoxes, but one that promises to be the greatest long-term influence over how we think is this one. The net seizes our attention only to scatter it. Again, I'm not against the internet in any way. I use it constantly for everything in my job and for teaching. But it's important for us to realize as Christians that every technology, again, has its own value systems that it brings with it. So it is not in any way neutral. So to review, I'm looking for 5 total things for you on this week's assignment. And that is going to consist of 2 types of projects, a flyer and a research paper. The first thing I'm looking for is the Surf's Up flyer, and again, you can walk through using the step-by-step tool in the learning activity. The second thing is a commodity training flyer. And for both of those, I didn't make this really clear, but I want to emphasize it at this point. The actual picture is stored in the learning activity, so you don't have to hunt to find the exact picture. You can find it out there and save it to your Word document. The third thing I'm looking for is the first research paper, and the last one is the wearable devices paper. So for each of those, you're going to give me a screenshot, and I've laid out in this learning activity in this PowerPoint what each page should consist of on those screenshots. The last thing I'm looking for you to do is make sure you go out to the discussion board and interact with your peers and myself on how the assignment went this week. As always, I'm privileged to have this opportunity to lead you guys through this journey and learning about technology and the Office program. So feel free to reach out to me at any time if you have questions along the way. And thanks. God bless.